Welcome to the AngelsWin Podcast with former Angels broadcaster Victor Rojas, featuring Jeff Stoddart and Chuck Richter. And now it's time to talk about some baseball. Victor, take it away.
I'll be perfectly honest with you guys as we welcome you into the AngelsWin Podcast. I have no idea what episode number this is, and I almost forgot how to log in. So at least I made it here. and I vapor locked when we were coming on the air. Hi, everybody. Glad you could join us. I'm Victor, Jeff, Chuck are with you. This is the AngelsWin Podcast, number 30-something. And cheers. Salute, everybody.
Cheers.
Gentlemen.
Happy June.
Yeah,
Happy June.
Victor, I don't even know what episode it is.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to episode 38 of the AngelsWin Podcast.
Okay.
Yikes,
There
not
we
even
go.
close.
38.
Not even
I
close.
had to look it up before we came on so I could name the file. That's the only reason I know.
Well, where is it on the file? That's what I
Yeah, if
cheated.
you
I
go
was
to
looking
if you go to
see.
people, if you click on people,
Yeah,
up at the top there it says episode 38.
Yeah.
it does.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Yeah.
Pretty much sums up the Angels season.
Yeah.
Yeah, no shit.
Yeah.
All right, everyone. Well, thank you for joining episode 38. That's all
it,
we
we're
have to
done.
talk about.
That's my best bolt. How you guys doing? Everything good? You guys have been killing it as usual.
We've been killing it, all right.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm doing well. How are you doing, Chuck?
I'm pretty, you know what? I have retired more times than playing men's softball than Brett Favre has in the NFL, dude. And I'm back again in second game of a doubleheader, and I crushed one, thought it was gone. Guy robbed it at the fence, and as I was rounding first base, I pulled my hamstring.
Of course
Ah.
you did.
Yeah, I mean, it just
You're now the Kent French of the AngelsWin Podcast.
yes, exactly.
You can't be doing that shit at our age. I mean, come on.
And you know what it was, Jeff?
Once you get past 40, it's like you're just asking for it.
My brain still thinks I'm 22. My body says, "Up yours, Chuck. You're 54." It is. I mean, it's just a great way to meet people in the community. I mean, I'm new to this area. It's just two teams playing a doubleheader every Saturday, and I was off to a great start. The first game, no injuries.
Oh, that's how they lure you in.
Yeah.
Don't run hard. That's it. You don't have to run hard.
And that's what it was, Victor. When I saw that there was a chance that it wouldn't go over the fence, I turned on the afterburners, and that's when it.
You turned on what
Afterburners.
used to be the afterburners.
a little exhaust smoke came out of the back end.
That was a
That
fart.
was just gas. Yeah, just gas you're passing. That's it. It happens at you get to a certain age. Oops, my bad.
Oh my God. Yeah. So yeah, but other than that, everything's good on this end.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, Victor, I know we were promoted a bit on X, formerly known as Twitter, some of the NCAA games that you were doing. Tell us how'd that go? That was fun listening to you as always doing
Thanks, man.
some of those
Yeah.
games.
Oh, yeah.
Had a blast. The Big 12 tournament was okay because you get teams that aren't really they know that they're in the big dance, so you don't really get your best guys. So like teams that needed to win were like West Virginia and Kansas State. So they're putting in the best effort, right?
Mhm.
But it was great. They put on a great show at Globe Life Field. The regional in Norman was awesome. I don't think we're ever getting invited back to the state of Oklahoma, to be perfectly honest with you, because last year I had the Stillwater Regional hosted by Oklahoma State, and Oral Roberts University, the 4 seed, ended up advancing out of that regional. And this year in Norman, the 3 seed, Connecticut, knocked off Oklahoma to advance out of Norman to Tallahassee, and then they got beat up pretty good by Florida State. But overall, I love college baseball. I really do. It is so much fun. The atmosphere is great, and they don't really do anything between innings. Texas A&M is a completely different animal, right? Because the 12th man and all that stuff. They just have their own thing going. But in Norman, it's not like a minor league game where, you know, you got a dizzy bat race or, you know, the air guitar thing on and you just can't wait till the inning starts because of the excitement that's there. These young guys, you know, laying it all on the line, guys you've never even heard of, some guys you've heard of. Some guys are going to be top 5, top 10 draft picks. Braden Montgomery for Texas A&M, a perfect example of that, who ends up getting hurt on day 1 in inning number 1 of the Super Regional for A&M. And he's out for the rest of the year. But just to see the atmosphere and the like, it was cool. Had a really, really good time in College Station. Had a great time in Norman as well.
Yeah.
Any guys that you saw in that tournament, Victor, that stood out to you like, wow, this guy's going to be a major leaguer?
Well, Braden Montgomery is going to be a major leaguer at some point, even with this. They haven't even told us what it is, but there's a rumor out there that it looked like he clearly broke his ankle when he was trying to score from second base on a single. It was kind of a freak thing. He went to plant to kind of get around the catcher. He was going to be out by a big stretch, but he went to plant to kind of dive head first around the catcher. And as he planted, it's like his other foot clipped him, and the ankle just snapped. And so he went in, got rung up, tried to get up and walk, and went back down. That's when you knew it was serious. But he's going to be a top 10 pick. He's the guy that transferred from Stanford to A&M this year.
Yeah.
Jace Laviolette, their center fielder, who ended up playing right, he's a sophomore, not draft eligible. He'll be a first round pick. He had 22 home runs last year. He had 28 home runs this year. Big kid out of Katy, Texas. He's going to be a stud. Ryan Prager, who got knocked out by Oregon, left-handed starter. He's a redshirt sophomore. He'll be draft eligible next year. He's got good stuff. He kind of reminds me a little bit of, he's from the Dallas area. He kind of reminds me a little bit of Clayton Kershaw, just his mannerisms and his poise, the way he speaks. He's got big leaguer written all over him. I'm trying to think who else. Gavin Krahovac is a freshman at third base for A&M. He's got a chance to be really special. He really does. And I'm trying to think of who else. Nobody else. Aschenbeck, the closer for A&M, is going to be pretty good. And on Oregon's side, trying to think. Nobody really stands out for me. There's the kid from John Spikerman, center fielder for Oklahoma. I like that guy. He is kind of like a Lenny Dykstra type, but thicker, bigger, stronger. Just goes balls out in the outfield, can go get them with the best of them. He's a special player. They've got a kid. What's their third baseman's name? Give me 1 second. Yeah. He transferred from Washington this year to Oklahoma, and he's going to be a stud. Michael Snyder and Easton Carmichael, they're DH. Both of those guys are really good players. So like I said, we had a ton of guys. Paul Tamaro, the shortstop for UConn grad. They had 3 grad students that came out of nowhere from D3 schools that all contributed to UConn winning that regional, moving on to Florida State. But Paul Tamaro had the most incredible defensive regional, super regional that I've seen in a long time. That guy, everything at shortstop was caught. I mean, he just played lights out. And so it was that's what made it fun. There was just like all these new storylines, unlike Major League Baseball, where, and maybe in the playoffs, you see a guy step in. I remember Todd Pratt stepping in for the injured Mike Piazza in the playoffs and hitting the home run against the Diamondbacks at Shea Stadium, right? There's always those type of moments.
Sure.
But at the College World Series, at the regional, super regionals, there's always some sort of random story that comes out. It's like the ace gets knocked out and some dude who hadn't pitched in 4 weeks, who's a redshirt senior, comes in and shoves for 6 innings and strikes out 9. Just stuff like that. I think that's the coolest part about college baseball. But good time. I appreciate you asking.
Yeah, no, it was great. It was great listening to it. It's fun seeing those guys that you know are going to be going to the next level. It's also fun, and at the end, in some cases, heartbreaking, seeing the kids, the seniors, where they're not moving on. And this is their last game. And they are, I mean, the definition of leaving it all on the field and just giving it everything they can. And it's incredible to watch. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah. As you were talking, I'm getting goosebumps because I'm thinking back to, and I brought it up not only on the broadcast, but after the broadcast, is all the hugs that are happening. You see one team is celebrating and happy, and then you see, Oral Roberts got knocked out. They were really good last year. They were a completely different team this year. They went 2 and out. But you see that, and then you see Duke get knocked out, and they had such a magical run. People thought that they should have been hosting a regional and should have been a number 1 seed. Instead, they were a 2 seed. They get knocked out. But to your point, it's like all these hugs and tears, and then the families is down the line, and you see them taking pictures, and they come into the stands. That's the hard part. Like it's actually for those that are not advancing on or moving on to the professional ranks. Like that's the last time you'll ever put on a baseball uniform, and it's like it sucks. I remember it well. For me, it was awful. And to do it on that level, that scale, and a big pressure situation, I can imagine what the heartbreak is like for those guys. And it's, it's the thrill of victory and the agony of defeat, as the old wide world of sports saying goes. And that's the toughest part about it. But that's what makes sports so attractive. And it's so beautiful is that you get a sense, and you, even the opposing team, like Oregon on Sunday when they got knocked out, and you got these guys that are advancing to the College World Series, and Oregon got knocked out. Oregon was 2 outs away from getting the College World Series last year. And Oral Roberts University came back, beat them, and then beat them a second time. And they obviously, ORU continued their Cinderella run to Omaha. And so this year they get knocked out after 2 games, and they're sitting there watching it. And you see their coach go out to Schlossnagle and said, "Hey, I'd like our guys to shake hands." And, to see them, they didn't want to, right?
Sure.
It's just so, but they go out on the field, and these guys are all celebrating, and the guys that are celebrating bring it down a notch because they're realizing what's happening, right? The meeting, and they're shaking hands and hugging, and it's really cool. I'm telling you, I've always loved college baseball. Like when it starts in February on ESPN Plus, like I'm watching like Elon take on the Citadel, the most random broadcast, but it's just so much fun to watch. And I love listening to the young broadcasters at the school. So more people, and it's growing. Trust me. You see the numbers. I think they had 1.2 million people watching the Georgia, North Carolina State game. And then on Sunday, I think there was a 1.3 million people watching one of the other games. I think it was the Tennessee game. It's growing because of that, because it's kids still, and it's just raw baseball.
Yeah. There comes a point where you play the last game that you're ever going to play. And sometimes you don't know when that's going to be. And it's hard for the players, but Victor, I'm glad you called out, like when they move to the stands and they show the families up there, and it's like, all of the, the weekend tournaments that you drive around, and going to practices, and going to see hitting coaches and pitching coaches, and just doing, that 12-year run with my kids when they were little, all through travel ball and stuff. And when it ends, you're not ready for it. Even as as a parent, I wasn't ready. And they were like, they got to a point where they're like, I don't love it anymore. Yeah. And I got it, and I understood, but I'm like, but I do. I love watching you play. Yeah. And that was harder to let go of than when I stopped playing myself.
It's really the best memories. And Tyler and I, we were just talking about it in the kitchen yesterday. My brother's here, and we were talking about, I don't know how we got on the topic. We were talking about travel ball because it's obviously the season right now. And I said, no matter what happens for you as far as baseball is concerned, it's like those really he only really had 2 summers of travel ball because that wasn't his thing until late. But those 2 summers were like the most memorable summers that all of us will have for the rest of our lives. And it's like we were just talking about, because we were all together. We were in Atlanta and the hotel and the dinners and the baseball games. When we came to Fort Myers, we rented a house in Cape Coral, and it's just memories you'll always cherish. And that's the coolest part about it. And it's like, it's going to end. I mean, I'm more of a realist than anything else because I've lived it, right? It's like, it's going to end. And that's why I always preach to him all the time. So just maximize it. Just have as much fun as possible now, because at some point you're going to have to grow up and get a real job. The real world is going to hit, and you're going to look back at these moments and say, man, we did have a good time. And I think that's if you look at it like that as a parent that's dealing with kids in that travel ball or in any sports, volleyball, soccer, it doesn't matter. It's all kind of intertwined right now. Just live in the moment. Don't worry about what could be or what will be. Just live in the moment, have the best time of your lives. Because I certainly have.
Yeah. All right. Well, Chuck, we're about 16 minutes in now. I guess it's time. We should talk about Guess we should talk about this team. On the upside, when we did episode 37, the team was in dead last place. So we come to you in episode 38. We're 1 game out of last place. Oakland lost earlier today, so they're bringing up the rear. But I don't know. What do you think, Chuck?
Well, I mean, what I think is that, and again, I've mentioned this many times, is that I'm just watching these guys. I mean, Ohapi's walk-off was fun to watch on this past Sunday, right? And, and the kids, and there's going to be struggles and the ups and downs of Joe Adell, and it's like, my gosh, the progression of Jose Soriano, right? He's looking like he could be, pitches tonight, he could be the ace of the staff. And he's a guy that we lost in the Rule 5. He had Tommy John surgery, and we got him back. And now, now he could be our ace, And it's just crazy how baseball works. And I would like to see more consistency from our younger guys, right? Shanuel, he's not looking good. I mean, he's bopping more home runs than I thought he would, but I don't think any of them have gone over 390 feet, or I don't think he's reached 400 feet on any of his big flies,
right?
Which is odd, because usually when you get a hold of one, man, you're going to get some that are at least 400, if not more. So anyway, I mean, now I'm just hoping for health, Jeff, of our guys that are on the trade market, right? The Tyler Andersons, health and performance, I should say. Hopefully we're supposed to get back Brandon Drury back. Hopefully he comes back and he gets red hot. You look at guys like Kevin Pillar, who's been a stud on the Angels. Probably get something for him. Taylor Ward and Luis Rengifo are both on the trade block, it seems. And you would think you could get a pretty good return for those guys. I've always said that I think the Angels should hold on to Rengifo. But I mean, let's see what the return is, right? See what kind of, but that's kind of where I'm at, Jeff. I mean, I watch the game, but when they drive me nuts, like Joe Adell trying to steal third base, it just didn't make any sense. I'm like, and I was glad to see Ron Washington pull him aside in the dugout and said, dude, what are you doing? Like, keep your head in the game. That's frustrating, but I guess it's the growing pains, Jeff, of what comes with a younger team, undisciplined team.
At some point, don't you just have to say, hey, go work out the kinks at AAA? Because the mental mistakes, especially when they're constant, whether it's defensively, the mental lapses, or whatever the case may be on the offensive side, on the base paths, not sliding, all that garbage. Right. At some point, if you want to send a message, you got to send him down to the minor leagues, right? Yeah. If he's going to be a part of your future, you got to figure it out. And if it's not happening at the big league level, then ship him out. If you've already determined that he's not part of your future and you think you just want to build some value to try to trade him, which I think is probably 3 years too late when his value was at its peak. when I suggested they moved him. You know, you have to figure it out. I think anything that's not bolted down to the deck is movable. I'm, Nolan Shanuel, I think at some point, look, I don't mind in a season in which you're not playing for anything, where young guys get the opportunity to at least see if they can figure it out. But at some point, that figuring out stage can turn into frustration, and you don't want it to snowball in the opposite direction. He is such a good contact, hand-eye coordination type of guy that if it's not happening right now, then alleviate some of the pressure and sentiment. If you see him as part of your future, and clearly you took him in the first round and you brought him to the big leagues immediately, you see him as part of your future, then send him down so that he can get, because you're not playing for anything right now, right?
Yeah.
So you could put anybody who's got a pulse over at first base.
Right.
And if it helps the maturation process for Nolan by sending him down, then I suggest you do that. And I'd say the same thing for Logan. I'd say the same thing for Zach if that were the case. Because you're not necessarily playing for anything right now. And the one thing you definitely don't want to do is mess with a dude's psyche at the major league level, and all of a sudden you start getting that doubt creeping in. And you're more focused about the negative side of things as opposed to what actually got you there. And I'm speaking more specifically about Nolan. So it's crazy to think that, a year ago we're talking about, the trade deadline. It's how fast it's gone. It's just mind boggling to me. And the whole Shohei Ohtani thing and all that stuff. And here we are again, we're in June, middle of June, creeping up on the trade deadline. And the question is, are they going to actually move players? Are they going to actually trade players? You've got to get better somehow, some way. Like I said, you're not really playing for anything this year.
Right.
And even if you snuck in as the last wild card, there's no real, anything can happen, I guess, in the playoffs, but there's no realistic shot of going deep into the postseason. And so I just think that you're playing for, which they should have been playing for 25 last off season, and not necessarily 24. They didn't do anything really other than the money they spent on the bullpen. What's the game plan? And more importantly, who's going to be running the game plan? Because if Perry's done after this year, what's like, who's ultimately making the decisions, right? And is Perry going to be given another opportunity going into 25? If he is, then great. If he's not, then who's making the ultimate decision on these trades and the players that are coming back and the evaluation of the players that are currently on the 40-man roster or anybody else in that system for the Angels? It's to me, you almost have to just say, hey, either he is coming back or he's not coming back. Make a decision one way or the other, so the organization has some sort of, and maybe they do, maybe they had the conversations internally, they just haven't put anything out publicly. I don't know, but I'm just saying that it's kind of weird. You're in this limbo stage, and the same goes for the draft. Perry's drafting whatever he's going to draft, what he feels is best for the organization, but it could be a boatload of players that if he's gone, someone's going to inherit, and that's not those players don't profile to that GM's liking. And that's always possible. So you just, again, like anything else over the last several years, it's up in the air. Throw your hands up in the air, and it's like, I don't know which way they're going to go.
It's hard to tell. I mean, one of the mailbag items we got from Francis from Westminster kind of ties into what you were just speaking of, is, what are your guys' speculations or theories about what the plans are for the front office? What are their plans? And at this point, I have no idea. And I don't know that anybody has any idea. I don't even have a guess anymore that's rooted in anything other than what I think they should do. Because, the tight-lipped nature of everything is just, it's frustrating as a fan. Like, give me something that I can hold on to, that I can attach to and be like, okay, here's the direction that they have in mind. It's like, I have no idea what the hell this team is doing or where
Well,
they're
that should have happened
going.
8 months ago. That should have
Right.
happened 9 months ago, and
Yep.
really it should have happened even sooner than that with the trade of Shohei Ohtani.
Right.
I just, that will still go down as one of the most mind-boggling decisions. And really, I mean, you were kind of already trending backwards a little bit from a fan perspective. That really got the wheel started. And then as you rolled into spring training, and they spent the money on the bullpen and no real pieces, and then Rendon gets hurt, and Trout gets hurt, and then it's like, here we are again. It's this vicious cycle that you continue to go on. Again, I've said this ad nauseum. At some point, you have to make a decision that's different than what you've been making for the last 13, 14 years. Right. And because the same stuff that continues to happen to the organization on and off the field are really generated from the same people. And so you've got to make some sort of, what does it hurt to wipe the whiteboard down and start anew? Start with something fresh. Look, to me, it's eyewash. The whole Chuck Finley in the dugout thing last year, and bringing Torrey Hunter as an advisor. I love those guys. Don't get me wrong. That to me is all eyewash. That's false hustle stuff from the organization saying, hey, look, we're doing something. We're bringing back guys. Well, fuck. Why didn't you do that for the last 12, 14, 15 years? Why don't you have a fan fest? Why haven't you had an old timers thing in Tempe during the offseason where, Joe Schmo's like Chuck can pull his hamstring playing against Chuck Finley in Tempe at Tempe Diablo Stadium. You know what I'm saying? It's like all those things have been there for you to do, and yet you've never done it. It's like, why? What's the point? How's that working out for you? Clearly it's not working. So fucking wake up and do something about it. At some point, somebody's got to wake up and just clear the cobwebs. Cause it just it's the same. We're having the same friggin' conversation that we had a year ago. This year, and last year you had Shohei.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? It's like you think about the pieces on the roster of what you're going to move from a trade perspective. Like, whoop-de-doo. Maybe Taylor Ward has something. Pillar's not going to bring you much in return because he was god-awful with the White Sox.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? People are going to go, okay, which guy is he? And he's a 26th man, really. He's not an everyday guy. He's filling in nicely, but he's not really an everyday guy anymore. Brandon Drury, what's he going to get you? Yeah. Joe Adell, maybe, because his value's down a little bit. Tyler Anderson, he was awful last year. Yeah, and that's the thing. It's like, I don't know what the expectation is. Like, yeah, trade deadline, you're going to get guys. You go like this, yeah, they got a pulse. Yeah, We'll take them. We'll take some baseballs. We need some bats in the minor leagues. That way we don't have to pay for them. But I mean, it's like, what are you expecting? It was 2 years ago, they draft, 20 guys, all pitchers? How's that worked out? And you signed, you drafted 20, right? And you signed 18? Was it 18 or 19?
I think just one removed. I think 19.
19?
Yeah.
And how are those 19 guys working out?
Yeah.
So you skipped a draft to try to get pitching in the organization, but yet you to hell with the organizational depth at other positions,
right? Which is scarce, which is really scarce.
Has been for a while.
Yeah,
and and I get it. You get these transitions, right? Because Billy liked the higher profile young kids out of high school, right? The high upside guys, and they're sexy in high school, but it's tough to predict high school guys. Everybody knows that, whether it's a pitcher or a hitter. Those guys are tough to project, and you can go with the athleticism, and that's cool. You can go with college guys. I remember the Royals. The one year they had something stupid, like 6 or 7 picks in the first 2 rounds
Right.
with the compensation. They took all those college guys. Brady Singer's still around, but none of them, and I think 2 or 3 of those guys were from the University of Florida,
Right.
that had a very good program at the time.
Yeah.
It doesn't always just work out that way. And so that's why I think, man, you got to get quality, not quantity. That's the thing. That's the thing that's been missing for years with this organization. Where's the quality, both in the front office and on and off the field in the organization as far as your roster depth? It's been lacking.
Yeah.
I'm not saying anything new. You guys know this. I spewed the same stuff we've talked about.
This is episode 38 of us saying the same stuff.
Yeah. But until somebody comes out and says, "Hey, we're going to do this. We're going to change it."
Right.
Listen, and here's the plan. This is the plan.
Mm-hmm. And to that point, Jeff, 3 episodes ago when we had Breezy on, she corrected you because you're like, well, they told us and came out and said that we were on a 2-year plan, and our plan is to, draft well and, and cultivate our farm system better, right? So we can bring up our own guys, maybe trade for younger guys, get rid of the older guys, but we're on this 2-year plan to be successful. And we may suck for 2 seasons, but that's our plan. That she was good with that because she had something to look forward to. But to Victor's point earlier, and we've been saying this, there's no communication at all of where this team is going. No, there's no 2-year plan, 1-year plan. We don't even, do they even have a plan? I know they haven't communicated it, but my God, you haven't seen anything come to pass or anything fruitful from anything that they've been doing whatsoever. And
this is year 4, right? Year 4 for Perry? 21, 22, 23, 24, right? This is year 4.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm not knocking Perry. I'm just saying, okay, what is the plan? Nobody knows what the plan is. Mm-hmm. And meanwhile, all you keep seeing are stories that come out and people talking crap about the organization, former players. It's like, don't you sit there and just go, as somebody in a leadership role, sit there and go, enough of this. We're damaging our own brand, and it may be our own fault for doing this. So let's change.
Are either of you surprised that Ron Washington hasn't stepped up to the mic post-game conference and said, "This is bullshit. This is not what I signed up for. They told me this. I've gotten this. This is not what was sold to me." Or is he just a classy guy that's going to write it out? And
I think you got to watch out. I think you got to. I think Wash in his own way will come out and say something. Professional baseball is interesting from the standpoint of being careful of who you piss off and who you upset, which apple cart you knock over, and the like. And because I don't know, Wash is maybe at the end of his rope, and maybe he doesn't care, right? Because it's like I've got my 50 years in, whatever the case be. Right. It's like, what are you going to do? I think if you do things in a professional manner, then there's nothing wrong with it. If you genuinely feel you're frustrated and you come out and say it, not to harp back on the college baseball thing, but Tony Vitello, the head coach of Tennessee, the other day had a 6.5 minute, rant that was a masterclass.
It was so good.
Not only getting the message across, but subliminally getting messages across to a number of different people, including recruits. It was brilliant. It was brilliant. And everyone everyone's take has been the same thing. It's been that was fantastic, and people retweeting it, and so there's a way of doing it without blowing up any shot of you continuing on in your work. But I think Wash has enough of a pedigree and an understanding of the dynamics of baseball to say his piece without getting himself into quote unquote trouble.
Right.
Look, nobody ever likes to hear the bad stuff. And I'm sure the Angels organization probably is tired of hearing the bad stuff and seeing Artie's name in the press and Carpino's name in the press. But there is, I don't know what season ticket holders have been told, and they're probably going to be told something that is really polished because they need those deposits and they need that money coming in, truth be told. And so their narrative might be slightly different than that of the public narrative. But at the end of the day, there's nothing to hang your hat on other than you've got a ballpark that's over 60 years old. It's kind of cool to go to still, and it's family friendly. And that's it. That's what you're selling in Southern California. I mean, good luck. If that's the long-term plan, good luck. Because I don't know. I think people are just going to get tired of doing the same old. At the same time that the team up the 5 freeway spends boatloads of money and has an unbelievable farm system, does everything from a player development process correctly. Their affiliations love working with them. They've got nutritionists everywhere. Everything is built out to major league specs, and they win at the major league level, and they keep spending money, and they keep putting 40, 50,000 people at Dodger Stadium. I mean, that's called sustainability. It doesn't necessarily mean you're going to win every single year. They haven't won for 5 consecutive years and had that banner and held the championship trophy, but they've put themselves in a position to win every single year. That's called sustainability.
Right.
That's the ultimate goal. Yeah, you want to win, but if you build culture and sustainability at the same time, and you get buy-in from everybody, not only in the front office from a personnel standpoint, but from a player development standpoint, from the major league roster on down, it's like you take your chances. But you gotta have a plan. You got to bring in the people that fit that plan. Get the people that don't want to be on that bus off the bus, and clean it up and at least sell that message. But that hasn't been the case. And it's been continuous. It's been the exact same thing over and over again. And I don't know. Maybe I shouldn't do podcasts anymore with you guys, because it's like, just just clip, my last episode and just put it onto this. I hate continuously going back and saying the exact same thing. But I know one thing for sure. I don't know this to be fact, but based on the things I read, based on some of the things I've seen from moves, stuff like that, they listen to a lot of different things. They listen, whether they listen intently on our broadcast or a podcast or read the websites, somebody is watching what we say and do. Because how many times have I texted you guys in our group saying, "Oh, that sounds familiar."
Right. Right.
Yeah. Pretty much every time something happens, like, "Oh, that sounds familiar."
It's true. I mean, Chuck, I think we may have even talked about that on the last episode with Adam and Katie, that we know that they listen, and I mean, I'll get texts or messages on X from people saying, "You guys are just haters, and you hate this team." I'm like, we do an Angels podcast for this team that is horrible. We don't hate this team. We love this team. We want to love this team. We want to celebrate the stuff that they're doing. But, Chuck, my God, I mean,
there's not a lot to celebrate.
There's only so much lipstick you can put on a pig.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
It's pretty sad, because I mean, like I mentioned before, I'm just watching to see these guys grow up, on the club and hopefully get better, right? And that's all I went into this season with. And I thought maybe just a little bit of help, from Trout and Rendon, maybe there's a chance, right? I mean, because every spring, every fan base has this hope, right? Hope is in the air.
Right.
And here we are again. What's crazy is we're already talking about trading guys, right? At the beginning of June, late May. And that's stuff that we don't normally get talking about until like July, ahead of the deadline. Right. And it's just crazy that it's so soon. And, and then what are the Angels going to do again? Are they going to try to draft not talent, to your point earlier, Victor, but just try to get the closest guy that they feel is to the big leagues, like a Shanuel and a Neto and and Bachman and all these guys
why not look at it from when you talk about the draft, right? And I'm spitballing here. So instead of taking 20 guys, you know what your pool is, right? And you got to stay within the pool. But instead of worrying about, was it Keith Law that said the kid Yusevich would be an under slot pick? Instead of looking at it that way, right? Why wouldn't you just spend whatever money you have and get the best player available at that time when your name comes up? And if you end up with 10 total draft picks out of the 20 rounds, you end up with 10, 20. That's it.
Right.
You got the 10 best available guys available to you based on the pool. And pay them whatever you want based on the pool. But if you end up with 10 of the best guys available, wouldn't you take your chance of that as opposed to rolling the dice with like, let me go under slot here, and so that we can stretch out the money to get 20 picks? Who gives a shit about the 15th through the 20th pick? What are the odds of those guys working out? And not only that, you could take those 10 and now you can go sign undrafted free agents.
Right.
And there's a ton of undrafted free agents that get signed every single year.
Oh yeah.
The problem is that your roster limits are now down to 160 across your minor league teams, right? They've cut back the roster sizes.
Yep.
So why not get the best possible for the 160 as opposed to just, we'll take 20 and then we'll release 20, because that's how it works. I mean, it's just
right.
Math, right?
Yeah.
Because you can't have any more than the actual limit. At some point, you just got to mix it up and try something new.
Sure.
If there's a kid, I'm trying to think of an example of, there's a Clayton Kershaw in high school. And I think there's one high school kid. I think he's a position player. That's a top 10 considered pick. But if you had like a pitcher that was, like a Paul Skeens coming out of high school. Paul Skeens was 6'4", 6'5" coming out of high school before he went to Air Force Academy. Catcher, two-way player, catcher and a pitcher. If you had somebody like that had high upside like that, and he had no interest in signing because he's going to the Air Force Academy. Like if you think that guy is the best available guy at that point when your name is drawn, then do everything you can to sign that guy. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I don't know why the approach doesn't change. It's like we're doing the exact same thing. It's like, what are you going to go into the draft looking for this year? Just to fill the 20 spots? Because you look across the minor leagues and it's like, you've got deficits everywhere, every position. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's like, how do you do that? I just don't, no comprendo.
I actually like that idea about just going 10 of the best picks. Mm-hmm. And then just forfeit the rest, right? I mean, you're done.
Yeah, I'm spent.
Yeah.
And if 5 or 6 of those 10 make it up, as opposed to 2 or 3 of the 20 block that you got, you're ahead.
Not only that, you cut your own deals with the guys on the side that probably aren't going to get drafted. Just say, hey, man, we're going to go hard 10, hard 11, whatever the number is. And, we've got your 20 grand. We want to, as soon as the draft's over, we're signing you. We'll get you 20 grand.
Yeah. It feels like it should be the plan that they should go into is the George Costanza Seinfeld theory of, what does your intuition tell you to do? Do the exact opposite. Because everything they've been doing for the last decade has been a train wreck. So what do you feel like you should do? Great. Do the other thing. And let's see what happens there, because what you've been doing hasn't been successful. And like we said, it's the definition of insanity, doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result. Like, shake it up, see what happens.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That Angels pick 8th, right?
Yeah.
Because early on, I'd seen things where like maybe JJ Weatherholt from West Virginia would be available at that point, And he's a dude. He's a dude. He's a dude. Ball jumps off his bat. He's smooth. Do I see him playing full-time shortstop at the major league level? I don't know. I'd have to see a little bit more of him.
Second base. Yeah.
But the dude hits and hits with pop. Ball jumps off his bat. So I'd have to look at the draft board again, especially after the last couple of weeks of being, immersed in the college thing, and just see where guys are at, where they're going to fall. Because after it's not, I don't believe it's a super deep draft. If memory serves, you got a lot of draft eligible sophomores at the collegiate level, which make things interesting. There's some talent out there, and you can help yourself early on. But even if it isn't a deep draft, and you say you go in with that mentality of, okay, we're going to go with the 10 best available, whatever, and it really turns out to be, hey, we're gonna kick ass the first 4 or 5 picks, and then whatever we get is bonus stuff the rest of the way. Just go get, because that's where that sweet spot is, man. The first 5 rounds. That's really, and you're going to find nuggets. Don't get me wrong. There's guys all over the Major League Baseball that have been the 10th, 20th, 40th, 50th rounds. Mike Piazza, Don Mattingly. Those guys are way down the road, right? But just go balls to the wall with those early picks, and slots be damned. You got nothing to lose. You've got nothing to lose. I mean, it's not like you're spending a ton of money on your international draft, or international money. It's not like that's working out well as far as going out and signing all these international guys. And so at some point you got to figure out what you're going to do to get some serious help as quickly as possible. I don't think there's anybody that, not that I believe that Nolan Shanuel was a major leaguer last year at this time prior to the draft. And I'm sure there's a lot of teams that probably thought the exact same thing and figured he should go down to the minor leagues. Because we had this conversation this past weekend. Is there anybody here, meaning at College Station or even in Norman, where you felt like they could step in later this year? And, to me, what's the point? Because most of the teams that are picking early, maybe the exception of Kansas City, because they're playing really well this year.
Yeah.
They could have, if there was somebody, I just don't know who that somebody is. There really isn't. Maybe Chase Burns, maybe Yasevich. I don't know. I just the kid out of Arkansas,
what's the point? I mean, if it gets to that point and you're 15 to 20 games out, why? What? So you can make a run? You're not going to make a run.
I mean, Paul Skeens got, I think, 6 innings last year at the minor league level, and then shut it down. Because they have a lot of mileage when they get into the draft. Pitchers at the college level, they've got a lot of mileage on them, especially the horses, because those coaches ride those guys. Because they have to. Because pitching, that's the only bad thing about college pitching. There's a lot of talent, not a lot of strikes.
Yeah,
unfortunately. After a certain amount of guys, after that Saturday guy, you get to Sunday and it's like, ooh, it's bullpen game, and see who comes out on top at the end of the day, man. Seriously.
Yeah. All right. Well, Chuck, final thoughts?
Yeah, just good to see you guys. I know it's been a couple of days.
That's all we got going for us.
You too.
Great seeing you guys.
Shout out to the Trash Pandas. I see your shirt on there. It's always cool.
I like that shirt.
Hey, I watched the Trash Pandas. I watched our minor league affiliate,
Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of like, watching college baseball,
Yeah.
Who do we have that might be coming? Is there anybody there?
There's some guys playing well that I'm keeping an eye on. So, man, you just got to hope that some of these position players, as I mentioned earlier, there's not a lot of guys in the system that are clubbing the ball, and that's That's unheard of because you usually got a few guys, right, in every system. And then, I drool when I look at systems like the Dodgers, because you look at guys that are ranked as their 15th to 30th best prospects, and you look at their stats and how they're doing this season, and they're killing it.
You're like, that guy could be starting for us right now.
Exactly.
No.
And it's just crazy to me, and our
depth is cool. Having depth is cool.
It is.
No.
And so, back when the Angels were good, right? In the 2000s, we had a great farm system, and we also had good free agent acquisitions, and it was just a well-rounded, great all-around organization led by Bill Stoneman, who's probably, in my opinion, one of the best GMs that the Angels will ever have, and maybe even in baseball. So
hard to argue with that.
Yeah.
Good stuff.
Yeah.
Victor, final thoughts?
I think I've given you enough of my thoughts.
All right.
Well, devil.
Real quick as we go out, the sporting world lost a legend today. The logo for the NBA, Jerry West, passed away. Southern California legend, but a basketball legend. And it was fun growing up in Southern California during that Showtime era. And he was a huge piece of that. And the way that he put things together and was able to finagle somehow getting Kobe and then getting Shaq in, and as he went down, just as a player, as a GM, incredible. So this is Angels baseball podcast, but we know we got huge Southern California sports fans. On
that note, though, too, since you brought up Jerry's passing, Steve Kaluke, the longtime voice of the Salt Lake City Bees, passed away, and just awful. What a great guy. I mean, that guy, I've never seen anybody just be so happy being at the ballpark. That's it. He just his time in spring training when he got a chance to come down from Salt Lake and talk about his son and what the Jazz were doing and what the Bees were going to do that year and stuff like that. It was so great to be around him and feel bad for the family and the like, but great. He's a true Angel, surrounded by angels now. And to Steve Kaluke.
Hey, to Steve and to Jerry. One last bit of Angels news before we move on. Something that just came across the wire here by Bob Nightingale. The Angels had an emotional team meeting today where players, along with manager Ron Washington, spoke.
Interesting.
That just came out 10 minutes ago.
All right. I have to go jump on my FanDuel app and maybe put some money on this one.
You know what they always say, right, about team meetings? Team meetings are usually followed by your best starter pitching the next day, or in this case, tonight in Soriano. Yeah. That's usually how that's when you do team meetings. You do it after like the fifth starter shits the bed.
Yeah.
Because you got your ace going the next day. You flip the table over. You guys are a bunch of lollygaggers.
Well, here's to a win tonight then.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right, boys.
Okay.
All right.
Thanks for listening, everybody.
Yes. Thank you, guys.
Take it on home, Jeff.
Thank you for listening to the AngelsWin Podcast with Victor Rojas, Chuck Richter, and Jeff Stoddart. Go Halos and drive home safely.
Say goodbye.